If you've been sitting on a podcast idea for months or years because you're waiting for it to be right, which by the way means perfect, I'm going to need you to really settle in with me today. And this is for you if you have never podcasted before. This is for you if you have a secondary podcast idea. This is even for you if you're looking at like rebranding your existing podcast and you're like, I don't know. I want to talk this through because perfectionism is the problem here. All right? Let's solve it. Welcome to the More Profitable Podcast with Stacey Harris. I'm Stacey, and this is the spot to learn more about the strategies, tactics, and tools you need to build your more profitable podcast. My team and I work every day with podcasters like you to shift shows from frustrating time sucks to productive members of your sales team, because your show should be built to generate and convert leads. So let's get into it. In fairness, solving perfectionism might be an overreach. I mean, when I figure it out, I'll for sure monetize that, tell you. Uh, but I haven't. What I do want to do is talk about perfectionism and how we sort of like climb over that barrier when it shows up. How do we like knock through that wall? It's so funny what's in my mind. Do you remember? I don't even know if the show is still on, but like, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe, the show American Ninja Warrior like really took off. And I had a like school age child at the time, and they were like super into it. It was a real thing in our house for a while, especially because it like ran during the summer. And so, anyways, they have the end of their courses, they had these like walls that you had to like we don't, but these crazy people who were into it had to run up. I can't even remember what it's called, like a warped wall or something like that. That I want you to think of perfectionism as that wall that we're gonna like run up and conquer. That's what's gonna happen today. Because perfectionism feels safe. It feels safer to stay here and like keep planning, keep polishing, keep perfecting, keep refining. This is a word that's been coming up a lot when I talk to people about this lately. Um, but there's very little, and I'm just saying that because I don't want to be dramatic and say no, but there's very little progress found in perfection. Generally speaking, if we're progressing, we're doing something wrong. We're doing something, and maybe not even wrong, but like not right, right? Like we're not always necessarily in alignment with like the most perfect version of it, because that's how we figure out how it gets better. And not just from a like outside perspective of like objectively good and bad, but to match our own taste. And this is what I really want to come down to, because I've been spending a lot of time talking about perfectionism with people. We've got a couple of clients in launch accelerators right now. And so we're talking them through their launches. We've got some folks I've been working with inside of the Profitable Podcaster Summer Camp who are launching new shows. And the sort of recurring theme is this going to be right? Is this going to be and it's not even like, is this podcast going to work? But am I going to do this well? Am I going to do this right? Am I going to do this in the way that everybody else thinks I should be doing this? Which A implies there's a wrong way to be doing this, which I don't totally agree with. But more importantly, what this highlights for me is that these are people who have an understanding of what a good podcast is, and it's important to them that they deliver on that. And so the thing I've been referencing over and over again, which is by the by, part of the reason we're talking about this today, is an Ira Glass quote. And I searched and searched and searched, and I cannot find where like originally this came from. I don't know if it was an interview or a talk he gave or a book, but sort of everyone agrees this is an Ira Glass thought. And roughly what he says is basically there is a gap between your skill and your taste. And so here's the quote, to the best that I can find, sort of the original source, which is, all of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there's a gap. Your taste is why your work disappoints you. The only way to close that gap is by doing a volume of work on deadline. Again, I have seen sort of versions of this quote here and there. It always comes back to Ira Glass, but I have not. If you know where it originally came from, let me know. I feel like I read it in a book of his, but I don't remember. But I have seen this again and again, and it's the thing I reference over and over again because it is so incredibly true. Part of the reason perfectionism is so paralyzing is because you have incredible taste. Is because you know what good looks like and you won't settle for less. But the problem is this inability or disinterest in settling for less than perfect is keeping you from doing anything. Because the fact of the matter is as safe and as comfortable as perfecting and refining and improving is, it's just avoiding execution because you cannot actually refine, you cannot actually improve something you're not yet creating. It keeps you invisible. It keeps you from learning. It keeps you from making the forward progress you are so deeply committed to making. Can I just be like really, really annoyingly honest with you? This is episode 689 of this show, which means I've recorded, edited, and I guess not technically released because we're batching these, but released, let's say, 688 episodes of this show before this. Do you think I like all of those shows? Do you think I think that all of those episodes are good? Do you think I think that all of those episodes are perfect? I don't think any of those episodes are perfect. I'm not totally sure I'm going to think this episode is perfect, but it is the best I can do right now. And that, I hope to God, is not as good as the best I can do next. Because I am always wanting to improve. I would rather be constantly improving than be perfect. Because if I'm perfect, I'm done. And where the hell is the fun in that? If I am perfect, I have reached the end of my evolution. I have nothing left to learn. I have nothing left to iterate. I have nothing left to refine. I'm done. I'm cooked. That's what perfect is. I don't want that, and I don't want you to want it either. Because what it does is it keeps you from doing anything. I have done so many episodes of this show, and some of them are great, and some of them I love, and none of them are perfect. And I'm not just talking, we did a podcast a couple of years ago, I think, where I talked about sort of your podcast experiment and just allowing that first season to suck. I'll link it in the show notes. And I think that's really important, is allowing yourself the space to be bad at something. But one thing I don't know that I talk about in that episode, I might, but I don't know. And if I do, it's worth repeating, is that first season, that first 12 or 20 or 30 episodes, whatever it is you set aside for your experiment, those aren't going to be the only episodes that you look back on and think, okay, I'm better now, right? I have improved. I don't like episode like 600 of this show. That's only 88 episodes ago. But I think these ones are better than those were. Does that mean I don't share them? Does that mean I don't use them? Does that mean I don't re-release them? No. They're assets. They're doing their job. Are they perfect? No. Do they work? Yeah, baby. That's more important to me. This feeling of wanting it to be better will not go away. You will keep building a muscle. You will improve. You will grow. And still, your tastes are likely always going to be just out of reach. What can I say? You have impeccable taste. You also hold yourself to impossible standards. And I say that with all the love in the world. And I can say that so confidently because me too, bud. Me too. It is one of the many unifying facts between my clients and I, and across all of my clients, I'll say most, but it's probably all of my clients, is this desire to do better, to do more, to be perfect. But that is an achievable goal. There is no perfect. But what's happening is in your pursuit of perfection, in your in never-ending procrastination, which is what it actually is manifesting itself as, it's costing you. It's costing you experience. It's costing you improvement. It's costing you growth. It's also costing you clients. It's costing you visibility. It's costing you opportunities. Because while you're waiting, while you're refining, while you're planning, you are not creating a searchable library of content that speaks to your clients in the language they use and speaks to the questions they have as they make decisions about investing in what you offer. And by the way, while they're doing that searching, because whether you're there or not, they're still searching, they're finding someone else. And that's part of the reason you're constantly frustrated by the fact that you're on sales calls hearing about the really bad investment they made before you to solve the problem you solve. I have had it too. That's the cost of hiding. That's the cost of your perfectionism. You are not giving your possible leads the opportunity to find you, much less build trust with you and see an impact from your work together. One meh podcast episode actually published is worth every draft of possible podcast episodes you have currently sitting in your Google Drive or in your Notes app or in your project management software or in your Airtable. All of those are real life examples of people I have worked with. And the Google Drive one is me. It just is. That crummy first episode, that embarrassing third episode are better than the episodes you're never, ever, ever going to create. Here's where I want you to start. I want you to just decide you're going to do it badly. Like, literally, let yourself do it badly. Because here's the reality, it's not going to be that bad. And maybe this experiment looks like putting together your first season. And in which case, let's do it in the accelerator. Go to uncommonlymore.com/accelerator and let's produce your first season. Let's produce your experiment together. We can also sit down and just plan your experiment, and you can DIY production if you'd like. I will say having some support has proved to help my perfectionist clients in the past. But I want you to try. And if that feels too big, if the idea of committing to a whole season feels scary, great. Find or think of 4 questions your best fit clients or that have come up again and again on sales call for leads and record them. Sit down and record answers to them. Speak to it. And then put them somewhere. Put it on social media. Put it on Instagram. Do a Facebook Live. Do it on LinkedIn. Put a video up on YouTube. Upload it into Google Drive and just send it to the next lead who asked that question. But just start doing something. Again, I highly recommend sitting down, mapping out 5, 12 episodes, and building out a first season, an experiment, a trial, and roll it out. But if even that feels too scary, just record something and share it with someone. That's the first step. Your first episodes are not going to be perfect. And the further you keep going, the further that number is going to go. Your episode 689 also won't be perfect, just as this one isn't. The only way to close the gap between your taste and your skill is to publish, is to create and put it in front of someone. The first step of that for many perfectionists I know has been the Podcast Launch Accelerator. And I want to invite you to hop in and let's get your first season out. There are 2 ways to do it. You can do it strategy only, where we'll do your planning, both the content and the launch planning, in 2 different calls. Or there's an upgrade to add production, which means that all you've got to do is record your show and market your show. My team and I, go in and produce all of your episodes, set up all your text, get everything sort of set to go out. Episodes will release. All of that is handled by my team and I. All you've got to do is record and share. And this has been hugely helpful for some of the perfectionists that have worked with us, because it has allowed them to make the decision partnered with an expert, and that helps override the voice in their head a ton, and kept them accountable to actually doing it because they invested, and they're still like working with me. Like, I'm there going, is it done? Because we're going to produce it and we're going to release it. So you got to get it to us. That's been hugely helpful to combat that perfectionism, to manage. Maybe that's a better way to think about it, right? Managing that perfectionism as they move forward. All right. All right. I will see you right back here next week. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Remember that content consumption does not make changes. So commit to doing something from today's episode. Maybe it's taking action on what we talked about. Maybe it's reaching out to me and learning more about podcast strategy intensives, or what podcast production looks like with our team. All of that is over at uncommonlymore.com. And if you haven't yet signed up for the podcast newsroom, I want to remind you that is a great next step. If you're not really sure what comes next, hang out over there. Get those exclusive private episodes. That's over at podcastnewsroom.com. And the last favor I will ask, because social proof is endlessly important for sure, is to leave a rating or review for the show. If you go to ratethispodcast.com/more, that's the easiest way to do it. But I would love to hear what you thought of the show, what you think of the show, and if the show has been helpful for you. I can't wait to chat with you. So this is just the start of the conversation. Reach out so we can keep it going. Talk soon.